Every nation on the planet is buried in debt. The United States alone now owes more than $38 trillion, the largest debt in human history. Europe carries tens of trillions more. Japan, nearly $9 trillion. Even countries flooded with oil money like Saudi Arabia or export giants like Germany and China all owe massive sums. So here's the question nobody ever asks. If everyone is in debt, who is actually being paid? This is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because debt isn't just a problem. It's the operating system of the modern world. Wars, financial crises, economic miracles, even global recessions. All of them are built on an invisible framework of borrowed money. And when you trace that system far enough, something strange appears. The world doesn't really owe money to a single group or nation. It owes money to itself, but that doesn't mean the rewards are shared equally. Today, global debt has exploded past $315 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the entire world economy. To understand how humanity ended up here, a planet running on promises instead of cash, we have to go back long before banks, credit cards, or digital payments ever existed. The idea of national debt wasn't born on Wall Street. It was born on the battlefield. In 1694, England was at war with France and running out of gold. The crown couldn't afford to keep fighting. Instead of conquering land or raising taxes immediately, the government did something radical. It turned to wealthy merchants and asked them to finance the war. In return, the state promised something unprecedented: guaranteed interest payments funded by future taxes. To manage this deal, a new institution was created, the Bank of England. For the first time, a government could spend money it didn't yet possess. And lenders received something even more valuable than gold, a legally binding promise from the state. That promise could be traded, bought, sold, passed down. This was the birth of the government bond, the foundation of modern finance. France copied the system, the Netherlands perfected it, and the newly independent United States adopted it to fund its revolution, then used it again to expand westward and build an empire. Debt stopped being a symbol of weakness. It became proof of power. The ability to borrow meant credibility, and credibility meant control. Empires once marched armies to seize gold. Now they issued bonds to harvest interest. The battlefield shifted from land to ledgers, from soldiers to balance sheets, and 3 centuries later, debt has become the world's most powerful export. The United States now owes $38 trillion. Japan has passed $9 trillion, and every single day, global borrowing keeps climbing, so fast that the world adds another $1 trillion of debt roughly every 100 days. Every country owes, every bank lends, and every ordinary citizen, through taxes, savings accounts, pensions, and insurance, is somehow both a debtor and a creditor at the same time. So who's actually holding the other end of the rope? To answer that, we have to start with the United States. Because America's debt isn't just a national issue, it's the backbone of the global financial system. Out of that $38 trillion, roughly half is publicly held. That means it's owed to investors, not to different branches of the US government itself. And here's the part that surprises most people. About 2/3 of those investors are American institutions. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, even the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining 1/3, roughly $9 trillion, is held overseas. Japan is the largest foreign holder, sitting on about $1 trillion in US debt. China follows with roughly $800 billion. Then come countries like the United Kingdom, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when people say America is owned by China, the truth is far less dramatic. China holds only about 2% of total US debt. In reality, America mostly owes money to itself. The US Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Americans pay taxes that cover interest payments. That interest flows into retirement accounts, pensions, and investment funds owned by Americans. It's a closed loop, a financial mirror. The debt is real, but the creditor is often just another reflection of the same system. And this circular structure isn't uniquely American, it's global. Japan lends to the US by buying treasuries. The US lends to Europe through institutions like the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations via the World Bank. Those developing nations then send money back to advanced economies by storing reserves in Western banks and government bonds. It's a planetary game of hot potato, except the potato isn't cash. It's promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU. Every promise is backed by another promise. It's like a poker table where every player borrowed chips from the person sitting next to them. And the only rule keeping the game alive is simple: nobody stands up. But there's another layer beneath governments, and it's the most powerful one of all: the markets. Behind every government bond exists a vast network of institutions: hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks managing tens of trillions of dollars in assets. They are the real judges of creditworthiness. They decide which nations borrow cheaply and which ones pay a premium just to survive. When markets lose confidence, currencies collapse, governments fall. Entire economies can be rewritten overnight. Elections may decide who governs, but markets decide who survives. And standing at the center of this system, the modern high priests of global finance are the central banks. Because central banks don't just manage debt, they create it. Every time the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, or any major central bank buys government bonds, something strange happens. New money is created out of nothing. One balance sheet records a liability, another records an asset, and suddenly fresh currency enters the system. That's the hidden truth most people never hear. Every dollar in circulation is someone else's debt. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every paper bill, every digital dollar carries an invisible IOU stamped onto it. The system has worked for decades because of one fragile ingredient: confidence. As long as investors believe governments will keep paying interest, even if the original debt is never repaid, the machine keeps running. But when confidence breaks, the illusion shatters fast. We've seen it before. In Greece 2010, government debt became mathematically impossible to repay. Investors panicked, bond yields exploded. Greece was locked out of markets overnight. The European Central Bank and the IMF stepped in with a bailout, but it came at a brutal price: higher taxes, deep spending cuts, mass unemployment. For an entire generation, rescue became another word for sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a permanent national trauma. Each recovery was followed by another collapse. Trust never fully returned. In Sri Lanka, the crisis arrived differently, but ended the same way. The government ran out of foreign currency to service its loans. Fuel disappeared, power grids failed, protests erupted, the political system collapsed. And that's the moment when creditors stop being invisible. Suddenly, you can see them clearly. The IMF, credit rating agencies, anonymous bondholders scattered across the world, holding entire nations by the throat without ever setting foot inside them. Yet even after collapse, the system doesn't end. It restarts, old debts are restructured, new loans replace old ones. Different names appear on the same balance sheets. Because in the 21st century, debt is no longer designed to be paid off. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments today don't plan to eliminate their debt. Not next year, not in 50 years. Not ever. That isn't a conspiracy. It's official policy. When you or I take a loan, we're expected to repay the principal. Governments don't work that way. They issue new bonds to pay off old ones, a process economists politely call refinancing. In reality, interest is the real product. It's the rent paid for stability. The global economy now depends on that rent, the way a shark depends on constant movement to survive. Stop rolling the debt and the system suffocates. This is why the world runs on confidence, not repayment. The United States will never eliminate its $38 trillion debt. It will refinance it indefinitely. Japan has been rolling over its debt for decades, now exceeding 250% of GDP. And yet its government bond yields remain close to zero. Why? Because investors aren't waiting to get their money back. They're waiting to renew the deal. In modern finance, a government bond isn't treated like a liability. It's treated like the safest asset on earth, the foundation beneath global markets themselves. And that belief is what holds everything together. Pension funds hold it, banks use it as collateral. Central banks treat it like money itself. That's the quiet truth of modern finance. The entire system depends on governments never fully paying off their debt. Because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument overnight. Imagine if Washington somehow decided to erase every last dollar of US debt. Banks would lose their safest asset. Pension funds would collapse. Global liquidity would evaporate. The dollar supply would shrink violently, triggering deflation, market crashes, and economic paralysis. Paying off the debt wouldn't save the system. It would destroy it. So governments do the opposite. They keep issuing more debt, not recklessly but rhythmically, carefully, predictably. Like a pulse, debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism itself, flowing through pensions, mortgages, insurance funds, stock markets, and national budgets across the planet. That's why when politicians promise to balance the budget or eliminate the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The real goal was never to erase debt. The goal is to keep it sustainable, serviceable, and, most importantly, believable. Because the moment belief fades, numbers stop mattering. Confidence collapses, interest rates explode, and an economy built entirely on rolling promises grinds to a halt. That is the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan is to keep the world believing it will be paid back. It's a closed loop of trust. And as long as that trust holds, the numbers can stretch almost indefinitely. But here's the part most people miss. That trust is not evenly distributed. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half true. Interest payments don't flow equally through society. They flow upward, from workers and taxpayers to institutions and investors who hold the debt. Debt isn't just a transfer between countries. It's a transfer between classes. That's why global inequality rises alongside global indebtedness. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who merely pay it. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's the same story repeated at every level, from households to nations, from nations to the entire planet. Creditors aren't villains. Debtors aren't victims. They're two sides of the same engine. The real danger appears when that engine starts running out of fuel, when new borrowing can no longer keep up with the promises already made. That's when the question, who is the creditor, stops being abstract and becomes painfully personal. Because at the top of this global pyramid, there isn't a single enemy to blame. It isn't China, it isn't Wall Street, it isn't the IMF, it's all of them and us. The modern financial system has turned debt itself into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and ordinary citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor has blurred beyond recognition. Debt once meant bondage, today it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, if confidence finally collapses, the illusion ends, and we'll remember what debt really is. A promise that can't last forever. If this story gave you a new way to see the world, subscribe to Power of Economy. Because history doesn't just explain the past, it reveals the systems controlling the present. And on this channel we show you exactly where to look.